Welcome, everyone. We're here, my gosh. Crom blesses us on this day. Welcome to another pandemically erotic episode of It Crept from the 80s. Oh, and friends and frenemies. Let me tell you, this is a special occasion because we are here with a nostalgia warrior of epic proportions. And he's been out there fighting the good fight for many moons now. And he is Joshua of Oh, I Had That. And he's here. Yay! Oh my gosh, Josh, it's amazing that you're here.
I didn't know if I should come in here with like a voice, like, am I supposed to be your Renfield or something? Master.
So it's great. Yeah, I'm glad you said yes. As I said to you outside of this, I have been wanting to do this for a while, get other like-minded individuals outside of the people that I have on the show, you know, my buddies, but more akin to what I'm doing with the channel. You're doing all over the place in social media. I mean, I know for me, looking through having the Instagram and looking through all the nostalgia pages and all of that stuff, I would always come across your posts. It's kind of hard to ignore the big Nickelodeon splatter of Oh, I Had That, and then just to see what magical joy you're pushing out there. So thank you once again for coming on to the show and indulging my my 80s sweet tooth.
No, thanks for asking me. This will be fun. I'm a fan of your channel and your feed as well, and it's always fun to meet more people who are like stuck in that nostalgia of the 80s and early 90s and talk about what we love and nerd out for a little bit.
Yeah. So as everyone knows who watches this channel, this is just a free flow. Nothing is really it's not beautifully and it's not a show. It's really what I like to do is I want the feel of everyone just sort of being in on it. We're all sitting in a room and we're all just shooting the green slime, if you will. We're just talking and bringing up the memories and reminiscing and all that good stuff. So that's what this is going to be. But I mean, there are some questions, but we'll just go off and talk about whatever we want to talk about. So I'm going to start with sort of your beginning, like when were you born, what was your overall feelings of your childhood generally, and then we'll go into more stuff after that. So just the beginning of Josh.
It was a cold and balmy night. I mean, I was born in 82, so I mean we have about, I think, 5 years or so between us.
I was 77.
So I grew up in actually the Midwest in Minnesota, so the frozen tundra, but I live in the southern US now, but my childhood was much like any other 80s and early 90s childhood. There was Nintendo and fruit snacks aplenty and Ecto Cooler and cartoons on Saturday. And we spent like, I don't know, 18 hours a day outside during the summer. It's it was just about it's longer now. I guess 2017 or so, I just started, I was reminded of something. I think, I know what it was. It was this Canadian television show called Today's Special that I loved as a kid, and it left my mind for a good, I don't know, decade or so, and then it popped back in, and I was like, what was that fever dream? And I figured it out, and I was like, man, I've been on Instagram personally for a little bit, but I haven't at that point, I hadn't seen like a ton of people on there yet, and or I hadn't searched them out for like nostalgic like 80s and 90s like content. So I was like, it'd really be fun to like kind of house a place where I have like these memories or these things I collect, and just kind of start posting about it. So that's how I had that started, was I think like June 2017 or so. Um, but yeah, I mean, you went through the 80s, and you have a probably even a crisper memory of it than me, because you were at a more adolescent time than I was,
Yeah,
during those.
I want to ask, like, and I'd ask this of everybody who's of our sort of ilk, is like, when do your memories really start rolling in for you?
I think,
Because
well,
I find it um, essentially the same for a lot of uh, kids from back then. Like, I personally remember um, like 4 years old, and I get that a
mhm.
lot from people. I get the, oh, around four, like.
That'd probably be accurate, because I'd say around like 86 and 87 is when things kind of kick in. And I remember vividly watching, like, at that point, what would have been like rebroadcasts of like You Can't Do That on Television, and different like early like shows that Nickelodeon like bought or adapted or produced, and
Yeah.
just loving that channel. And then also just really getting into, like, around that time, like Ghostbusters, Real Ghostbusters, and Ninja Turtles. And
Oh yeah.
those were like my first like passions of like, I have to have all the toys and watch all of the cartoons. And so it was like that. Those early waves of those action figures are like very vivid, and like stuck into my like psyche and memory. Because after that, like Ninja Turtles, like that first wave or two, I was like in. The Ninja Turtles had the soft heads, and those are the only turtles I had. I didn't have those later like wacky ones where they were wearing costumes, and like they had all those random, like a Dalmatian dog, firefighting dog. And like I missed all those later waves, because I was already past that. I was probably like playing little league at that point. But those memories, definitely like 4 or 5 is, like you said, is probably when it starts kicking in. So that later half of the 80s and into the like 93, 94ish, I would consider like 94 where like childhood kind of like transformed into like you're becoming like a teenager, and you're interested in different things. And
That's yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's interesting. Like, and I've heard that before too. Like, a
yeah.
lot of people just of our age drop off certain things at a certain age, and it wasn't until later that they started to come back to it. And
Yeah, because seriously, I didn't like buy or collect like anything like toy wise, or like that kind of like stuff from my childhood throughout the later 90s or even early 2000s. It wasn't until like 2010 or later that I started to want to rebuy that stuff.
yeah,
And I was always a huge like movie fan or cinephile, if you will, and was very much into that, especially in high school. But yeah, like the cartoons and like the things that you love as a child, like kind of like left my memory for a minute there, but then came back with a vengeance, as you would look at my room if I could show you all of it. But
yeah. Like, I was just a weird. I never like let anything go. um,
oh, I wish.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm talking about memories and
Yeah.
certain things that like my the way that I am, I just
Mhm.
didn't change much. Um, and I've said this before on my videos, but I was still buying toys up to like 13 years old, um, to
Yeah.
actually like take them out and do stuff with them. But I remember like the summer, so I was 13 in 1990. I remember that summer, it was the summer of not actual playing anymore, but buying to put up on my shelf.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't my shelf, then I started putting them up on my bedroom wall, still in the packaging. And I don't know why I did that. And like, because, we didn't have any of this back then.
Mhm.
All we had, like, I was getting, comic books and certain magazines about certain things, and I was already a Fangoria kid. And you don't like who do you see collecting and putting packages up and things like that? Like I just started doing it, like, because
Yeah.
I think I felt like, well, I'm still, I still love all this stuff. I don't want to play with it, but I love the way it looks, so I just started putting it up.
Yeah.
And then through my teen years and going into my 20s in the 90s and everything, I still was buying that stuff, and it just kept growing and growing and growing, and I just never let anything go. I've always pretty much, and I think, like, if you were to talk to my family or friends, I've always just been the same Chris. And
Well, that's great. Yeah.
I find you through the years you find that, oh, okay, well, these friends sort of fall away and drop off because, oh, they're growing up and they're getting into other things, and that's why they're not hanging out with me anymore, because I'm still same old Chris, much to, I'm sure, people's chagrin. I'm sure I still get it. I can imagine people being like, you're 44 and you're playing around with this dumb shit, but I think I don't care. It's just one of those, I just don't care. um so I feel blessed that I never sort of went through those phases. Even when I was like starting to have girlfriends and whatnot in the 90s, I was just like, hey, you want to get down with this? If not, then, see ya.
Hey,
You know?
you want to go to Toys R Us tonight, baby?
Yeah, that type of thing. So I don't know. No, I've never bent for anything, I
But
don't
that's
bend.
awesome.
I
Yeah.
don't bend to trends or people's wants of what I am, that that's probably why, like, this is interesting. Like, so I grew up in a very small town called Wellsville, New York. It's in upstate Western New York, and it's between like Rochester, New York, and Buffalo, New York. And it's very small. Uh, People are always shocked that I came from this small town because of just the type of person I am and what I've done and all this stuff. And um, so, like, where was I?
Oh, you were talking about Wellsville. Side note, isn't that where Pete and Pete is?
It is. Yes, it is. Not, unfortunately, not the same town, but it is a Wellsville, yes. Um, but what was I trying to say before the Wellsville thing?
I don't know. You were talking on how you never bent, and then you grew up in Wellsville, small town.
Oh, okay. So people thought that I was the troublemaker in Wellsville, but I didn't drink. I didn't do drugs. I never smoked. I didn't cause like mischief. I was the troublemaker because I was the weird kid who was making movies, was like dressing up in weird like outfits, and you know, I still had toys and all this
Yeah.
stuff. So I would like hear from my friends that their parents were like, they kind of don't want me hanging out with you because of this. And I was just like, what? Like, so, but ultimately, I mean, I never didn't have friends. It just, I always found it like funny and a little bit frustrating that I was considered like a bad influence growing up in my little town, just because of the way that I was.
You're like,
I didn't play sports and any of
yeah.
that stuff. Oh, why is he making movies? What's he doing out there?
I was gonna say, if your buddy's like, yeah, my parents don't want me hanging out with you, you're like, what? I just want a zombie to consume your innards and get it on videotape.
Yeah, that's basically what it was, because, and they would go home with like fake blood and stuff all over them, you know. And
What is it?
I was like I was a teen. I was in my 20s, and I was still having like sleepovers because I was just like, I don't want to let it go. Why?
Yeah.
Like, who cares? It doesn't matter that you're getting older. Like, hang on to all that stuff. I don't know. But
Forever
yeah,
young, man. Keep it going.
that's right. That's right. So I always, I find it to be like a bummer when people say that, like, I changed a little bit, and then, I got into this and got into that and then got back into it. I completely relate to the getting back into things.
Yeah.
But I guess I just never changed. So I don't have that perspective,
Yeah.
which is very interesting.
I
And
think I was just nerdy in different ways when you hit the teenage years and start getting, like you said, interested into like dating and more social aspects of that time of your life. I was still nerdy about, like, I worked at a movie theater all through high school and was all about movies, and I was in theater in school as well, so I was acting, and I even took that into college and went to school for theater. So I mean, I had all these other interests that I was getting nerdy about, where I wasn't like, well, the collecting and like the toys and stuff weren't coming in as much, but I think I was still like an odd duck my whole life. I got into emo music, and then
oh no.
and then I wasn't watching like Ninja Turtles. I was going to a lot of concerts through those years, but yeah, I mean, it came back around, and I just one day was just like, wow, I want all this cool stuff I remember from childhood. That, a lot of my toys, unfortunately, my mom, rest her soul, I lost her last year, but a lot of my toys and good memories come along with like my mom and dad, and the love of both of them, and also just wanting to hang on to that, but also um all that stuff I had as a kid kind of went away over the years through garage sales and what have you. Like, I wasn't able to really hang on to much. So getting it back now, I'm finding myself like buying old Happy Meal boxes and like toys that I love from McDonald's and little stuff like that. And it's just brings me a little joy in sharing that with I'm a father now and have a 4-year-old, and he's like, he calls like Blu-rays and DVDs tapes, because I I'm a huge VHS fan. So like,
Yeah.
he's all about that, and he knows all of his characters already from like 80s cartoons and stuff. And I was like, you haven't even really watched those, why do you know all that?
Yeah,
But
I found that to be that was like one of the very exciting things for me, when when I knew I was going to be a father, was, oh, you know ooh, now there's a little me that I can, like,
oh.
I can push all my stuff onto. And yes, yes, he's going to be a different kid. He's going to know stuff that nobody knows.
You will love this 80s
and
stuff.
and he did,
Yeah.
like, I that was the stuff that I really shoved in his face when he was a toddler. And of course he likes the stuff that he likes, and
Yeah.
Yo Gabba Gabbas and all that stuff, and he was totally into that stuff. But he was also into Thundercats, and Punky Brewster, and things like that. So as he got old, he's about to be 14 now, but
Oh, awesome.
he's one of those, like, he talks about all this stuff, and his buddies are like, I don't know what you're talking about. And their parents will be like, River, how do you know all this stuff? He'll be like, I grew up on it, like my dad.
That's gonna be my kid, and it's like, he's 4 now, but he's already like talking about, like, he has a Castle Grayskull and all these like Masters figures and real Ghostbusters figures. I had to go buy him like the old toys where I could find them so he could play with those, because daddies are nice, they stay on the shelf.
Well, I was stupid. Here's what
Yeah.
I did. I had a lot of my stuff still from when I was growing up.
Yeah.
I always displayed it in my house or wherever I was going, my apartments or this, that, and the other thing. And when I had River, my son, I was like, this is it. I'm going to pass down all this stuff to my kid. Not even thinking about what a toddler would do to toys like that.
Oh yeah.
And he destroyed a lot of this
Oh
stuff,
no.
until finally at a certain age, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to slowly start taking some of this stuff back. And what he didn't destroy, I still have. And what he
Yeah.
did destroy, I ended up buying again.
Yeah, but now that's the beauty of being an adult with pocket money, is you could go buy that Beast Man figure with all his accessories Whereas the one you gave your son was like already partly torn apart.
I remember the thing that bummed me out the most was what he did with my original Ecto 1.
Oh.
I mean, he trashed that thing. And then like, and it's all because he just, he's just
Yeah.
a kid. He's just
Yeah.
playing with it the way kids play with stuff, and it's getting broken, but he's drawing like fake ghosts on it and stuff like that. And I mean, it just looked like terrible. It just looked
Oh,
terrible.
I still remember the day, like a few months back, when my son entered the room and he brought in this little piece of green plastic and he's like, "Daddy, I broke the Castle Grayskull clip." And I
Oh
was like, "No," but that part always breaks. It was
yeah,
gonna
it does.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, they're kids. They're playing with it. I love it. I loved being able to like get him those toys that I love and see him play with them and love them and enjoy them. So yeah, it's so funny. It's got to be awesome to be at that 14 stage and be able to sit down and watch a movie though, and they totally grasp it. Like I can't wait for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's funny is that like some of those movies he saw when he was like 5, 6 years old,
Yeah.
and now watching them, he's like, this is this is a whole new experience because he's actually like getting it and understanding
Yeah.
what's happening in those films. But there's certain films that he just 100% just loved from the get-go, and one of them is Ghostbusters, and one of them is Back to the Future. Like
Those are
those
both
two,
for my kid too. He loves both of those
yeah,
already.
it's insane what he retained from those back then. But some of the other ones, he's like, I figured like, because I showed him the Monster Squad when he was like 7 years old, and he forgot everything. I was like, this is perfect. This is monsters. This is kids. You're gonna love this. I loved it. Like you're gonna love it. And it just like nothing. And now at 14, I'm like, hey, you want to watch Monster Squad again? He's just like, nah, nah. But if I say, well, you want to go down and watch Ghostbusters? Yeah, let's watch Ghostbusters, man. Let's do this.
He'd probably like Monster Squad now. I
He
feel like
would love it. I know he
Yeah.
would love it, but he's also a teenager, so he's got that whatever you think is cool is stupid now, Dad. And
Yeah.
I got my stuff, and my stuff is cool.
What I have found, like revisiting a lot of like old TV and movies, like even with him around, is that the content was so like talky back then and like not as action packed as they try to make stuff now, like if you compare to a Marvel movie. That like Monster Squad too. Monster Squad's very like dialogue based, I would say, and like kind of slow moving at times. So
Oh yeah,
I can't imagine. It's weird that we like loved it at such a young age, because I loved Monster Squad
I
pretty
know.
early too.
Yeah,
And
I was like one of like 10 people in the theater. I was 10 years old, and we had to drive because this was the only, we had to drive 2 hours to a mall to see it, for me to see it, because it was the only, and then a week later it was gone. It was just gone. But I loved it. But that's because I mean, I was a monster kid. Like I grew up, I was very young when I got into horror movies, and I loved horror so much. So, but so for me, I ate that stuff up. It didn't matter. I was thinking about the contrast, because I saw Aliens when it hit VHS at one of like my mom's parties or whatnot, and she rented all this stuff. So I watched Aliens, and at that time, so it came out 86, probably 87. It was on VHS again. So I was like 10 years old. I ate it up. But when we showed River Aliens at like 10 years old, he was bored out of his mind. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, are you serious? He's sitting there playing with his toys and everything, and he's just like, yeah. I'm like, look at this, look at that thing. So it's interesting what he gravitates to. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's very interesting what from the 80s that he still loves, and what he's just like, no, I don't think so.
And I have kind of a parallel perspective to you though, is where a lot of that early like 84, 85, like that content, like Ghostbusters and things like that, were I caught on like the 88, 89 kind of time period on like VHS or on cable, or, that I got into it after it had been in the zeitgeist for a while, like Back to the Future and Ghostbusters. Cause like, especially 1989 is like my jam. We had Batman, like I think shortly after that, what was 90 Dick Tracy, like,
Yeah, and the Turtles movie.
yeah, and Turtles, like that stuff was all my
Back to the
jam.
Future 2.
Right at the right time to like go see it in the theater and whatnot. But like, I was already into Ghostbusters and stuff, but it was totally about seeing it on like videotape or on TV. So I came in it at like 7 years old or so at the end of the 80s. But yeah, it's such a different perspective to like be a father and like think about that and how they're into it. Like my son has no concept of time or whatever. He's a 4-year-old, but the other day he put on this, he has like one of those ghost face scream masks. Yeah. And he has like a costume bin where all these masks he loves are.
So did my son.
So
he got a costume bin.
He put on that scream mask and he's like, "Oh, it smells like the 1980s." And I was like, "What? You don't even know what the 1980s is."
That's fun.
He's just like, yeah, it's just great. But yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that I totally forgot what I was gonna say there.
Well, I'm definitely at a point now where I get it. He's gonna be who he's gonna be. But it's funny, like we all think that, like, man, wait. Once River hits 20, he's going to be coming back around and wanting everything again. He's going to be all about it. He's going to be like, hey, Dad, remember this? And he's going to start getting that nostalgia bug. And he told me like last month, because he redid his room. And I'm like, well, you want to get rid of some of this stuff? He's like, no. He's like, you put it in tubs. He's like, I'm not going to be stupid like you. He's like, we're going to hang on to this stuff, so that like when I'm your age, I'm going to get all my toys again. I was like, that's sweet, that's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So we are going to hang on to that stuff. And what's funny is that the stuff that he's hanging on to is the stuff that I was growing up with, but his version. So like I'm growing up with Star Wars, Turtles, Transformers. He's got his era of Star Wars, Turtles, and Transformers that he doesn't want to let go. So that's going to be his stuff. I think that's pretty sweet,
Yeah, that's cool.
Some of those properties that have hung on and are still going.
That's awesome.
All right, so let's all right, so before we go into like the top this and top that, I'd like to know I guess what it's been like for you to have this oh, I had that, like what it's meant for you, what it's meant for your happiness, your nostalgia, like meeting other people. Because I would assume that's one of the reasons why you wanted to start it, was to be able to project your joy out to other people and find the like-minded individuals to enjoy it as well.
Yeah, totally. Like I kind of touched on earlier, it's just like I started it as an outlet or a place to like kind of save these memories that keep popping up, or things I like come across that I was like, oh, I remember that commercial, or I remember that toy, I had that, or oh, I had that, that's funny. But it was just kind of like that, like a place where I could like store these memories, so like I don't forget again. And it started to build and build and bring more and more joy to me, where I started like collecting and rebuying things. And now that have a home of my own, I have this cave where all of it can live, and it just keeps growing and wanting to burst at the seams. So soon it will like bleed into, I'll need a bigger room. But yeah, like the community that has grown on YouTube and Instagram and in podcasts of like 80s and 90s nostalgia and memories has just been awesome. Like meeting cool people, like there's a Instagram and podcast I love called The Rad Years, and those guys are really cool and have a lot of passion about the same things I do. And people like yourself, and there's another gentleman named Retro Rick on Instagram that I really enjoy his content.
Yeah.
just like meeting everyone, it has been like everyone's been so cool and nice and supportive, and just like even the community of people that aren't like creating content based on that nostalgia, but just following and like engaging and commenting and meeting people that way has been really cool. And people like, oh my gosh, you just blew my mind with this. I forgot this even existed. This is so amazing. But
Yeah, that's part of the fun
yeah,
for me, is to also get the reactions from other people who, oh my God, it's an
yeah,
instant time machine. And
yeah.
that's fascinating to me. I love it. I do this thing called Saturday Morning Sleepover. Um, and I curate, 10 hours of nonstop 80s and early
Oh,
90s television, cartoons, commercials, music videos, and stuff like that. And I've been doing it now for 4 years. And it's fun when people come in for it, because they're here for the long. You're you ain't going home. You're coming in and you're staying and you're sitting there and you're watching this stuff. But it's fun to watch people's faces be shocked and be taken back, because you can see it like instantly, like, oh my God, and they get a
yeah.
huge smile on their face. And some people have been like, I got goosebumps, because it like it shoots them back. And that's part of the joy for me. And it does it to me as well when I scroll through your Instagram, or when I scroll through so and so's Instagram, and I'm like, and I don't see something that I see something that I haven't seen. And that's weird for me, because I was a pop culture sponge. So there's a lot of shit, useless shit,
Hmm.
that I know from those time periods. So it's always really fascinating and exciting and a jolt when I see something that I didn't remember, and you happen to put up, or so and so happens to put up, and it's like, oh my God, like I get those shivers. And I'm like, ooh. Let me tell you a story real quick. One of the reasons why I did CREPT from the 80s was because I I started doing the Saturday morning sleepovers before I even did the CREPT from the 80s thing. So I was curating commercials, and I saw a commercial for um, the Condor for Mask, for a commercial for Mask and the toys. And it was one that had the Condor in it. And I did not expect to have this reaction, but I started to get tears in my eyes. And like, I really felt like, oh my God, like I have not felt this in forever. And I just wanted this feeling to hold on. I was like,
Yeah.
holy crap, like I'm I am going to get every mask that I ever had when like it suddenly like hit me that
That,
this is part of something special. This is a joy that I don't ever want to let go. And that really set me on the, oh wow, I want to share this. I want to share this feeling. I want to share these memories. Now I want to go back and get everything that I ever had
mhm.
growing up. And I have for the most part.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the fun of it. I found like being through the Instagram and the content, like the podcast that started pretty early with my Instagram. I've like started like a snowball, just getting into like rebuying stuff and collecting it again, and then now it's bled into like finding stuff and reselling it so other people can like enjoy that
yeah,
nostalgia, and getting it back to people who follow, oh I had that. And it's just been a joy for me to like go thrifting and find cool stuff again that like I maybe forgot about, or that I've been looking for and couldn't find. So yeah, I'm right there with you. And now just like the other day I was just like trying to find I was trying to find these old Michael Jordan cards that I have somewhere. And because someone posted something recently, it was like, oh, those might be worth some money finally. And I was like, oh, I kept these specific cards and I still can't find them. And I was just like, oh, I just have too much stuff.
yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
what I did with them. I can't find them, uh, but that's a good problem to have. It's like having all this like joy from childhood around me that it's just like every day I walk into this room, I'm just like kind of like sigh, like, "Ah, this is my kingdom. I
Yeah. And
built you."
how do you go about collecting? What is your because some people will just get everything, anything
Yeah.
and everything. Some people go, as far as toys are concerned, some people go for the whole lines. Like, what is your collecting specifically, you think?
I'm not into like paying top dollar and like finding that stuff that's like real, like sought after and high value, like for real Ghostbusters, for instance. I got an Ecto one again. I got the 4 figures. I got the Slimer and Marshmallow Man back, and like I'm good with that line. Like
Yeah,
those are like the main ones that I had as a kid. That like that's all I need. But then I was like, oh man, now I need to get a real Ghostbusters cereal box, and then I found one of I have them right here. I found this at a Comic-Con, and it was only $10, and he goes for much more on eBay and other sources now. So I was just like, well, $10, I got to get that. And then I looked it up later, and I was like, whoa, that was a great deal. But like, just this brought so many memories back. This little bubble bath with Slimer on top of it. It's just I like kitschy stuff like that too. Like I'm really into like finding like old food packaging and soda cans and stuff that don't exist. So like I collect that stuff too. Like sometimes my wife's like, you just have some junk in here.
yeah,
but she gets it. But that's like, it's not just about collecting toys. It's like memories. Like I said, like Happy Meal boxes. I love those. I even have a shelf behind me that's like just random, like there's a can of Strawberry Quick
quick. Yeah, man.
and some other like random like Pizza Hut things. And yeah, my collecting is kind of all over the place. It's just whatever like gives me that jolt
Yeah.
of nostalgia, like you were talking about, and brings back those smiles and memories. So I just have like kind of a mishmash of things in this room. What's that
I
term?
think for me, that's what what I initially wanted to do was just recollect um, everything that I had growing up that I remembered,
Mm-hmm.
um, or dig them out. You know, I went back home to where my great aunt still lives in the house that I grew up in, and I was digging through, all the rooms just to find anything that I could, and I did, and then I took back some of the stuff I gave to River. So initially, that's what I was gonna do. I was like, I don't need to go any further.
Yeah.
But then I was like, but there was also some stuff from back then that I didn't get, but I always wanted.
Uh-huh.
So I started going after those. And then I was like, you know what? Man, I really liked this food, or I really loved this drink, and so I started to look on eBay, and I was like, now I'm gonna go down these stupid like, soda cans and chip packages and all this crap. I'm gonna do all that like stupid shit just because of a memory,
Yeah.
just because of like, wow, I loved this, and this was 35 years ago, but now I'm looking at it and I'm holding it, like it's so bizarre. And you're right, like
Yeah.
people, my wife is a nerd, thankfully, but she doesn't have like a really tight, passionate nostalgia. Her thing is video games. She loves
Mm.
video games, and she's 9 years younger than me, so she is definitely a 90s girl.
Mm.
But her big thing growing up was Super Nintendo and PlayStation and all that stuff, and that's her bag. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she has a room dedicated to all of her gaming and all of her games and everything. But so me, I'm like, oh, I gotta get this, 1988 can of Pepsi, because I had it and I remember. And she's like, you better not be spending like $50 on a can of Pepsi
Uh,
from 30 something years ago.
I
But
have so much stuff around me that I want to grab, but it's like just out of.
I see cans over there. Yeah, I see cans.
Yeah, the other day I finally found I don't know if it's in the view, but I finally found a original 85 new Coke like
Oh,
can,
oh yeah.
which I can't ever find anywhere, and I finally found one. And I got it and I was like, this is so heavy. Like it's like made of steel or something, like different metal before they like switched to like a more thin aluminum. But oh man,
yeah.
just to hold it, so great.
Yeah, I remember the new Coke thing. I made a video about it when Stranger Things was coming back and all that stuff. And it was here for like 6 months and it was gone. But I remember it so vividly because of my great grandmother. When it switched, my great grandmother was like, "Oh, new Coke! It's gonna be it's huge." So we had that in the house
Yeah.
all the time. And for me, a kid addicted to sugar, it didn't taste any different to me. I was just like, hey, Coke, all right, So when I did have it again as an adult, I was just like, all right, it's Coke, I mean, what's the big deal? But I had to have it. I had to have it because it was such a huge memory for me.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't buy 2 of those like Stranger Things boxes with the new Coke.
I did.
Yeah, I did.
I did. I'm a sucker like that, man. I
Yeah.
buy all that stupid shit. I really do.
Yeah.
Oh, Stranger Things is reintroducing the original 85 Eggo box. I have to get it.
I couldn't find one of those anywhere.
I found it in a Target.
I can see it. It looks awesome.
Yeah.
I have a little game, Stranger Things, like card game that looks like an Eggo box. That's all I could find. I couldn't find that re-release. But yeah, I had to go around to when they did like the Baskin Robbins things. I went around to those and had to get the pint that looks like the one from the show, and like
yeah, I do that, man. I do that anytime like the food brings out their repro retro things. I go and find them.
Yeah, like all the Doritos that were out recently. I think I got most of those. Yeah. And oh man, they're so great.
I did it, and I framed the bag.
I think I saw that in one of your videos. I was like, oh, I should do that. That looks pretty cool.
It's ridiculous. And now I don't have to spend, $80 on an original, Cool Ranch bag from 1986.
That's like the only reason I want that new Mattel Castle Grayskull is the box kind of looks like the old box, and I'll probably never have that old box again. So I'm like, oh, maybe I should buy this new one, and my son can play with it, and I'll keep the box.
I pre-ordered it. I'm gonna get it because I'm going gaga for that stuff.
Yeah, I bought like Skeletor and He-Man, the new ones, and the Battle Cat, and then I got Scareglow, but I think I'm gonna tap out on like the figures from the new ones. Yeah. But yeah, I have like a bunch of the old stuff loose, and I have a complete Grayskull, so I'm like good with my He-Man.
I got what I wanted.
Yeah.
When I did my recollect, I got what I wanted.
And those ones behind you, that's like when they like first did like ones that look like the old.
Yeah, that
guys,
was the
right?
Super 7.
Super 7, they look a little bit beefier. That's right.
Yeah, that was the Super 7. It's their like Filmation version of the originals. The first ones were the commemoratives, and that came out in 2001.
Oh, okay. Those were like more of like a box, right? Were they like a beefier box, or were they on car?
The commemoratives, like they did these ugly like. So the original packaging was there.
Oh, okay.
And they did these like weird, ugly outer packaging.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. I think it's like.
And I didn't, no thanks. I would always throw those away and just have when I did go back and get those commemoratives, and then I sold my commemoratives and whatever.
Yeah, these Origins ones are really cool, though. I like them. They're so much like the originals.
He-Man is one of my top 5 toys growing up. So I'm a sucker, and I have been getting all of them.
Yeah, I really wanted to get my favorites that I have vivid memories of, which was Leech and Skeletor and He-Man and Buzz Off. And so I think I have all the loose ones that I wanted. And I'm pretty good with the He-Man. It's just like, and also anything original Motu just like skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So it's just like so hard to get a hold of stuff unless you stumble across it. That's what I love. I love going to like estate sales and garage sales in the area and trying to like find some gold.
Yeah, it's tougher now though, because like now these homeowners are smart. You know,
Yeah.
now they're like looking on eBay, and some of them like know what they have.
Even Goodwill is trying to do that. And it's like, come
Oh
on,
yeah,
Goodwill.
oh
Like,
yeah,
it's supposed to be a charity. You don't need to try to get like top dollar on like, and they don't know how to do it either by looking at sold prices. They'll look at like what's listed, somebody's like dream ask price, and they're like, let's write that on the tag. It's
yeah.
crazy.
Um, so all right, let's. I'm gonna go into some tops, some top fives maybe for or top things. I guess it doesn't even have to have a number.
Like Topps baseball cards.
Yes. But so what are your top things? What are your top pop culture things for you as far as, I don't know, I guess as a kid, and that still means something to you now, or they still hold up to you now, you know? Not so much like, because I could name a bunch that don't hold out to me, but I loved back then. But the precious few that still hold up to you in movies, cartoons, toys, just throw whatever you want at me.
The big one is right above my head. It's the Pee-wee's Playhouse and the action figures that go with that. Pee-wee's Playhouse and Pee-wee's Big Adventure are just like next to Back to the Future. That's like for my childhood, and they're like top echelon. So I had to like go out and find a bunch of the Pee-wee figures carded, and I have them all loose up in the Playhouse, and
It's great.
that stuff is like near and dear to me. That's like some of the favorite stuff in my room. And then there's things that I had to rebuy because of like the memory of it. So I have a VHS tape of like I think it was like my 8th birthday, and it was at Chuck E. Cheese, and I'm opening a present, and it's a Ninja Turtles Waterfalls basketball game, and I had to find it again just so I could have it on the shelf and have that memory that I have on tape, like have the toy again that's in that footage. So that's another one that I was like really proud that I was able to find it, because like until I saw that footage again, I like completely forgot about this thing. Like it just went out of my brain. But stuff like that. And then actually I just like within the last 2 years, like just decided like I love VHS tapes again. So I went all in, and I like kind of built like a VHS closet to keep all of my tapes, and made it kind of look like a shelf at a video store. So having those again and rebuying all like my favorite movies from like that certain like kind of like 1980 to like 1996, I cut it off. Like after that point, it's like I don't probably need that on VHS. But just like finding those again and building a collection has been really fun for me. But other than that, it's just like we talked about, like buying the little things like soda cans and food packaging, and things that like bring back some sort of like spark inside of me. But those would be like the top, I guess, pop culture points would be like in this room. I really love cereal boxes, Pee Wee Herman being represented in here. And I have a ton of Ghostbusters, like from the real Ghostbusters sleeping bag that's on my sofa over here to I had to rebuy that whole line that they just released, the Kenner remakes. I have those on the wall. I'm not going to open those. I'm just going to.
Yeah, me
So
either. I got
so to the naked eye, it looks like I have the originals on the cards, but they're not. But yeah, that I just love filling this room with things that like remind me of those great times. So like all of it is kind of like top of the line to me. But yeah, it's just a kind of a assortment of memories.
Do you have like grails that you're still hoping one day?
Nickelodeon, you can't do that on television. Green slime shampoo
Oh yeah.
is like the grail item. Because it's nowhere. The only thing I see is there were little promotional like packets of the shampoo that you could tear open, that I've seen people like find those recently and have those. And even Mark Summers, he's like, here, I found this huge box of promo slime shampoo packets. I'm just like, man, throw a couple my way. But it used to have this great bottle with a you can't do that on television logo and like slime, and I would love an empty bottle of that. Like, it doesn't even have to have the shampoo in it anymore, because there's that commercial, and I don't know if you remember the commercial, but it's like a brother and sister watching television, like watching You Can't Do That on Television, and then it's like green slime. It's almost like an infomercial, like Nickelodeon green slime shampoo, and they're like, oh, and then they're like washing their hair with it at the end. Like, that's like a grail. If I could get that again, that'd be one thing. I don't know if there's other. If I could own like a carded Hulk Hogan Hasbro action figure again, that'd be awesome. I wouldn't open him. I'd just put him on display. Yeah. I have him loose, the same one from my childhood, but
yeah, one of my grails is a LJN Roddy Piper.
Oh, I have him without his kilt. I have a loose one.
But I want a package.
What?
Because it's like, it's gonna be $400-500. And I always look. Look. But Roddy is my favorite WWF wrestler, and I had like, maybe I only had about 6 of those big ass LJNs back then, the big rubber things that could kill you. But Roddy was my favorite, and I wouldn't mind having him loose with his kilt.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna do it, I want the full thing, just to have that packaging again, and to see it. And I've seen, because I had several friends who are huge wrestling fans, so I've seen it. I've held it again, and been completely jealous. But that's one of mine for sure. But I just can't pull the trigger on things like that. It's funny, my wife is the opposite. My wife will spend whatever on something like huge, and I'm more of a, but with that money we could get several things.
Yeah, that's me too.
One thing.
I want a Marty Hot Toys, Marty McFly Hot Toys, but I can't pull the trigger on it, because I was like, I could buy all these other things.
Like, all the Hot Toys we have in the house is all my wife.
Really?
All my wife, either presents for me, or just, she calls it for the family.
Yeah.
Because she loves it as well. So all the Hot Toys we have downstairs and all the Hot Toys in here, all her. I'm like,
do you have a Marty Hot Toys?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
But
I'd say that's a grail too. I'd love to have one of those, but now it's like they don't sell them anymore, right?
They get out of print, and then you're paying like secondary market prices for them, when they're $250 anyway. I
should have did the payment plan back in the day and grabbed one.
Yeah, that's what she does. She does a lot of the payment plans.
But yeah, I rather get a lot of cheap stuff. I'm like,
you know how many things we can get with this?
I can buy 10 cereal boxes.
Yeah.
That's what I'm like. But another thing, I guess, would be the Kenner Superpowers Batmobile. That I like. That's like my treasured childhood like vehicle. Like that. If I could have that again, that's another one. I have the Batman and Robin loose, ready to sit in it, but I can't. It's like $100 usually, and I'm just like, do I want to do that? I don't know. I could buy other stuff.
Yeah.
But that's another one that I'd love to have in the room again. I was able to get a carded Michelangelo fan club, like soft head, like Ninja Turtle. That's on my wall over there. That I treasure that one as well. But Yeah, there's just so much stuff out there that I want to get my hands on, but
yeah, we need to get a bigger house. We are going to hopefully start looking in a few years once
oh
River's a little
man.
older. But
But packing all that stuff.
I don't mind it. I really don't care because I know ultimately I get to unpack it and then restart. I love to
Yeah.
decorate.
Oh yeah, that's so
So
fun.
and we have, again, I mean, we have so much stuff and we keep getting more stuff.
I'm already envisioning like blowing out this wall and like moving it into the garage further and like making this room bigger.
Yeah, I have to have, this room has got to be bigger. Ultimately, I want to be able to put all the horror in its own room and then have the movie theater be its own movie theater. Because right now it's the horror and the movie theater.
That room is amazing though. I love
I
your little tours of it.
love it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's we've had it since 2016, that room, but I still get like, I can't believe we have it.
That's the one thing that like having a home that I wish I like I kind of want to make this room bigger so I can make like the front of it more of like an actual movie room and then have toys in the back half. But that's the one thing I'm kind of lacking. But we have a really nice, cozy like family den that like gets real dark and has a nice big old TV in it. So I enjoy that. But that theater room that you have is just so fun.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in it every day. I was down there watching shit before I came up for this.
I would be too. I used to have a roommate that built one of those, got the big lazy boy theater seats, put the screen on the wall, had the projector, and I was in there more than he was, just like enjoying. But
it's awesome. It's awesome. But yeah, one of these days it's funny how we want to look for a house that has more rooms just so that we can put toys and stuff. Yeah, it's so ridiculous. We need a 4-bedroom home. That's so silly, but I mean, right now, like our living room is probably our science fiction and Star Wars room. But we want to have a designated Star Wars room. We want to have, and Katie does have her video game room, but she needs a bigger video game room because there's stuff that she can't put out because the room isn't big enough. This 80s room is so small.
Yeah.
I need a bigger room for all the stuff that I have. And then we have to make sure that we can have another home theater in the house because that is, on top of having a designated horror room.
Well, if you just wait a few years, it's like, son, you will be moving out now.
Oh, yeah. I would take that room. Damn it, I would.
Just blow that wall out.
He has the biggest bedroom in the house.
Oh, wow. Time to move him.
Yeah. But, all right, let's see. Oh, this is something I ask everybody. And I'm sure I'll get the same answer from you, but there's also an answer of pure sort of I don't know and mystery behind it. But why do you think there's such a large portion of people like us who just can't seem to let this stuff go? Like, what do you think is like? What's the factor?
I think that we grew up in like the explosion and like the genesis of pop culture and advertising and like spoon feeding like entertainment to the masses. Like I think the 80s leading into like the first part of the 90s was like the perfect time for all of that and for like merchandising and like all the things that like exposed you to the things that we've held on to. I think it just made that time period like ripe for memories and nostalgia. Whereas like the baby boomers and like before that, they have like nostalgia, but I feel like it's not it's not the same.
It isn't. It isn't.
Like my dad's toys were like hard plastic, like cowboys and Indians on like these hard hollow like horses and like baseball cards and things like that. But they didn't have the exposure and like the marketing to the kids like we did. So I think like we have the coolest stuff to like stay trapped in and like love. So I think that adds to it. I mean, just the like look at our rooms. I mean, this stuff is all from that time period, and like you couldn't go and like fill a room like this of like 50s or 60s stuff. Like it's not the same.
Yeah.
It would be like it'd be like decor for your home. Be like mid-century decor. Like yeah, there you go.
Elvis posters.
I think that's the main thing is like just the television and like the movies and advertising that we were exposed to just like built up and it's just like this cavern and mountainous pile of like things for us to remember. So I think that's why. And there were probably so many of us like birthed at that time, you know, like I think like what our parents the baby boomers, is that what it is? Or I forget the generations, but
I don't know.
But like I think there was like a crap load of those people having kids, so there's a lot of us from that era too. But you even look at like fast food and stuff, like McDonald's marketing to kids with like their characters and their Happy Meal boxes and putting like sitcom characters like Elf on like lunch boxes and coloring books, and like everything had like merchandising involved with it that just made more stuff for you to want to buy and like have and bring back those memories. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think there's just a lot of stuff that adds to that nostalgia from that time period. So that's why there's so many of us like loving it.
It's, essentially what a lot of people tell me is, I mean, it really was, and something I say for sure all the time was that we are of a generation that it just isn't going to be like that ever again. And it never was. Do you know what I mean? It was all happening new, fresh at that time. And it really was a pop culture explosion. Like,
well, yeah, it's totally true. And it ties into kind of some of the things I pulled for us to like kind of talk about here. Is like one of the things I love to buy is TV guides. You're like, get out of here.
You're damn right.
Elf.
And I read them.
Yes, I even bookmark some because to like showcase why I love these. It's like Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Channel 7. Norm is promoted to company hatchet man. Like Cheers, like that kind of stuff. Like I just like there's never gonna be appointment viewing television, or like the cinema experience like there was for us. And I think that adds to the whole, like you're saying, boom of pop culture. And like I want to make that for my son. That's one of the reasons like I loved building this like VHS closet and kind of like having a home that like is soaked in this nostalgia, is so that he can have those feelings of like, oh, it's family movie night, or like we got to sit down and watch this show right now. Like I missed that the most. Like we'd all sit down and watch, Cheers or Family Ties or whatever it was that like you don't do anymore with the way people consume entertainment and how much there is out there streaming. It's just like a totally different world.
But
freaking TV guides. Oh, you know what I just had to buy? I have to grab it here. My earbuds back in. I need like a longer headphone cord if I'm gonna sit here. I had to buy this, which was totally like, no, I didn't have to buy it, but how could I not? It's a TV guide rack You stick to the side of your television.
Yeah, my grandfather had one on the side of his lazy boy.
Yes. Another one of my buddies, when I showed him this, he's like, yeah, my grandpa had that. Like everybody's grandpa had that. But yeah, now I'm gonna like stick my TV guides in it. And
That's awesome. That's
but
awesome.
one of the things I'm really jealous of is you and other friendly people on Instagram have the awesome wood console 80s televisions. I can't find one.
That was I mean, that was years looking for.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you know, we certainly had it in our home growing up.
Yes.
And I went into, so I did this, I was a part of this show before it, CREPT from the 80s. And it kind of, for me, I had to leave that situation, but he had one in his room and I was like, oh my God, like I want that. I want to take this. Like, how did you, where are you finding this type of stuff? And so I have been scouring Craigslist forever. But then about a month ago, I just typed in vintage TV in the Facebook
Marketplace. I'm
marketplace,
always looking in there, man.
for Rochester, New York.
Yeah.
And that came up. And the dude was only selling it for $25.
Oh man, that's
He was
awesome.
like, I just want it out of my house. I was like, I'll take it.
Yeah, I always have my eye out for one because I want one so badly in here because I have like 3 like tube TVs, but they're all like kind of like 90s editions. And
yeah, I had a 90s tube TV in here before.
Like the one that's going over here with Teen Wolf in the background. But yeah, I really want one of those old, like my family had the huge wood console with like the metal handles on the bottom, like television. That I want one of those again.
Yeah.
But
Insane.
yeah, that stuff, it's just like I have my family's original Atari that's in like the faux wood console and all the games with it. Like I'll never get rid of that thing. Like that's a family treasure. It's a family heirloom.
Wood paneling was a big thing back then.
Yeah.
And that's what I did in here. I just bought a bunch of wood paneling wallpaper and just put it
That's
all
awesome.
through here. So it looked like growing up with Grandpappy.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so it was a very different time. It was a special time, and I think for me also, I can get go through bits and pieces of depression or not feeling the best here and there, year after year and things like that. And I have been a filmmaker since I was very little and started Low Budget Pictures, the name, in 1991. So I was making tons and tons of movies back to back all the time. I mean, there were years where I was making 6 movies a year and I was just getting worn out and I was having bouts of depression and I was just like, man, and I would always think back to my childhood and making movies when I was a kid with backyard with the friends and everything. And then everything that I loved. And, I started finding myself in 25, 26, starting to watch all those cartoons again, all those TV shows again. And because honestly, it really, it was almost like a therapy for me. It was like these things truly are making me feel happy. Like these are good feelings. It's like a warm blanket. And it's joy. So anywhere I could find joy, I was, desperately wanted it. And I found it in my childhood. I found it looking back and thinking about all those times. And certainly it helps that since 1984, I've had VHS tapes of growing up, and if it's not birthday parties or, wedding anniversaries, it's, me making movies with my cousins or my neighbors and things like that. So I have all that stuff, and I just started to pull it all out, and it just always has been a part of me. And then the more that I got like depressed or down, I would just like, well, you know what, I'm gonna watch some different Strokes, or I'm gonna watch some Shira or whatever it is. And I would just like, oh man, like what an amazing time, what an amazing decade and era that we grew up in. It's never going to be the same. Kids today are never going to know what we had. They just aren't. It's so different, so that definitely was a big part for me to be like, you know what, I'm not going to let this stuff go. I'm just going to continue to love it and embrace it and go after it, and try to get as many people on board as I could to, hey, you want to watch this too, right? You're all about this. You grew up when I did. They're like, what are you talking about? No, but it takes a specific warrior to to be able to embrace the past and not see it as a bad thing. Because I know there's a lot of people out there who don't like that nostalgia term. They don't think it's healthy, or they think it's like, why live in the past? But hell, man, if your past was as amazing as ours, you know what I mean? Like,
you know how often I say to my wife, like, I just wish we could raise him in 1985.
Yeah.
It's just, you don't have to be living in it and like escaping your reality to like appreciate and enjoy, what we had and what we grew up with. And I think that's what we're doing, is we're just appreciating and loving something that like caused, like, I wouldn't say caused, but brought so much joy to us and so much happiness. And to pass that on to like our kids and like share that with our own family is great, because it's a totally different world. And one of the reasons is these smart devices that like take up everybody's time and energy and like attention. And it's just like, if we could shut off and like just like enjoy like each other and like entertainment and like absorb things the way that we did as kids, it would probably be a totally different, happier world again.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love that. I love like being able to surround myself with this stuff, and just the feeling that it brings. So yeah, I know that there was a time where it was like, I don't know if it's still around, but like, like nostalgia is a negative thing, and don't be a man or person who lives in nostalgia, and like that's your weak to look back. Like, no way, man. It's just trying to be happy and appreciate like the life that you've lived and the things you've been exposed to. And I wouldn't change it.
No, hell no,
I'm sorry, my eye keeps going to the Teen Wolf 2 poster. God, I love that movie so much, and nobody appreciates it the way that I do, but I'm glad to see you do.
I do. I mean, it's not Teen Wolf 1, but
I mean, Teen Wolf 1 is amazing, but I mean, he's a boxing wolf.
Yeah. No.
I love Jason Bateman, so.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah.
I have that Back to the Future print that's behind you as well. I forget his name. Is it like Andrew Heath or
I don't know. That was gifted to me.
Yeah, I have a Ghostbusters one that he did too, which is pretty cool. I'm sorry, I'm just like also like looking around at your room. I want to see everything. I love that your tours that you've done online as well. I enjoy those. I need to do one. I don't know how to do it. I feel like this, like, will this be interesting when I like think about doing it? But
man, let me tell you, like room tours, like anything like that, like showing off movie collections.
Yeah.
That stuff is the highest viewed stuff on my channel.
Yeah.
Wow. Like people love that stuff, And so, hell man, if somebody wants to see it, I
Yeah.
particularly do sometimes find it boring. Like when I'm shooting it, I'm like,
Yeah.
but somebody out there is going to be like, oh, wow, like cool. Like, and that's what I found on the channel is I'll get messages from people that are like, I just watched your video and I remembered, 15 different things that I had,
Yeah.
and it's like, this is so great. Instant subscribe, like that's cool.
Yeah.
So
I
like,
guess I guess if anything, I should do it just to like see if the like give people that jolt of nostalgia too. Maybe they'll see something they forgot, which would be cool.
yeah, man, I'm
I'm
not doing
always
it
like,
for me.
yeah,
you know, I live
yeah,
it. But if people want to see it, certainly, certainly. So, I try to do them every year, and they're always huge.
yeah.
And then I'll do like, oh, let's see, you haven't seen my movie collection in 6 months. Let's see an updated movie collection, and those are huge. Um, you know, the reason I think I've been able to somewhat have a minuscule audience also is because of the movies that I've done, and I already have like a built-in cult following. So a lot of those guys, I'm sure 50% of the people who watch my stuff are fans of the movies. And then 50 would just be nostalgia people. So that's been a big help for me.
Have
Yeah.
you put your movies on like VHS with like box art and everything at all?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, when I first
Yeah.
was distributing movies, it was all VHS because that's all we had.
Oh man.
I mean, so I got a video camera. Well, our family got a video camera in '84, but I coveted it. I took it and started doing shit with it. Um, so uh, and there was a glut of shot on video horror movies in the '80s, and luckily uh, our small town video store called Video Connection had a lot of that stuff, rented that stuff. So I was renting it, and in addition to all the mainstream horror and all that stuff, but it showed me as a kid that holy crap, you can shoot with a crappy video camera, and it ends up in stores. So that was a lot of inspiration for me, to pursue that. But I was lucky in that at a very early age, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So those, going into the teen years and those early '90s, it was all VHS. That we would go to conventions and sell with, we'd make these crappy VHS covers and sell the movies on VHS, and then we got like distribution through a company called Cemetery Cinema out in Texas,
Nice.
in like '93, '94, and then they started doing the covers, and I didn't have to. So they were putting the stuff out. So yeah, it was all VHS. But after I closed down Low Budget Pictures, which I had for 20 years, I started Warlock Home Video, and Warlock Home Video was supposed to be like a time of back in the '80s when everything was shot on video and people were making shot on video horror, and so we started to emulate that and go back and shoot on over the shoulder video cameras, and we were releasing stuff on VHS back in 2011 and stuff like that, and that was huge. I mean, there's a huge VHS market now for people who have that nostalgia for it, and certainly at all the conventions that I would go to, there would always be tons of VHS vendors,
Nice.
some with great, reasonable prices, and then some with like astronomical, ridiculous prices.
It is crazy what like especially horror like what the
Yeah.
tapes go for like that goes back to our conversation about like I would rather buy a bunch of cheap stuff than like one big like I love my VHS like quarter to $1 a piece like
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, come on, really.
but
That's what they should be.
yeah.
I ain't paying $500 for a VHS
That's
of some
crazy.
crappy movie I'm not gonna like anyway. You know what I mean? But
Whew.
hey, people do what they want to do.
Yeah.
People collect how they want to collect, and that's fine.
Which, speaking of, we could totally lean into this and go into like some favorite films if
Please do.
I pulled some out
Yes.
to discuss. Which I already think I hit on like staples. I probably mentioned all of these already, but let's do these two. Two of my like favorite comedies that hold a lot of memories for me, like watching them with my parents and specifically my mom. She was really into like just sitting down with me and watching like silly, zany family comedies. But the first one would be Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, which is a personal favorite of mine, which since over the last few years, I actually met and I've gotten to know Keith Coogan a little bit. And like,
Dishes are done, man.
yeah, I actually have a plate on my wall signed by him that says that. But
Nice.
I love this movie. It's one of my personal favorites. And then the other one would be this is one that I couldn't find, and I had to pay a little bit for it on VHS, but Summer Rental, which was I always loved. This might be my favorite John Candy movie for some reason, but it is. But I love this one as well. That's one. Those are my two like favorite. I would say like comedies that I can watch at any time, anywhere. But then I pulled out like staples that I have that are like define who I am, I think, as an adult. I even have this first one tattooed on my arm.
Yeah. Well,
it would be Back to the Future.
Yeah. It's a top 5 for me, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think that movie is like top for most of us of that.
Yeah, I can't. Well, I mean, just in general, I think you're a miserable human being if you don't love Back to the Future.
Like, or if you haven't seen it yet.
I mean, the movie is damn near perfect. It's a perfect film.
And then the next one, of course, I already touched on was it made up 1989 was the original Batman. Yeah. I mean, for me, it doesn't get better than Michael Keaton.
He's my favorite Batman.
Yeah.
I'll never forget. It was the first time that me personally, I had ever seen my movie theater with human beings all around the theater, down the block, waiting to get in to see this movie. You know, I was 12 years old. I remember seeing movies since I was 4 years old in the theater with people, family, friends, whatever. But that experience with that crowd, I had never seen anything like that. And even in our small town, like Batman 89 was like,
it was huge. It was everywhere. And it seemed like it lasted forever.
Yeah.
This one, I mean, I have the VHS, like the big clamshell of this somewhere, but I pulled out the Blu-ray. The Sandlot is like also like pinnacle for my childhood. I mean, at that point, it sounds like you were already making your own movies around 93, but this one was like huge for me. I was a little leaguer and totally into this movie. Another one, I actually had the fortune to talk to Thomas Nicholas last night for the podcast, or a few nights back this week. It just went live today, but he was a star of Rookie of the Year, which was another film that I absolutely love as a kid. But then, of course, we already talked about Pee-wee's Big Adventure a little bit. I mean, you have to have Pee-wee and you have to have Dick Tracy.
I wasn't a big Dick Tracy fan. It's funny, like when I went to see it, I thought they were a huge ripoff of Batman. I was like, the marketing, everything is just like, what? They're just trying to be Batman, and it's not as cool. The biggest thing that I loved about Dick Tracy, and that's just because like I'm a special effects head and a monster kid, was all of the special effects and the prosthetics and everything in the movie. I was like, well, this stuff is fantastic. This stuff is great, but I never got into it. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, and that might be a part of it too, like the colors and the saturation and all of the makeup and stuff. It just made it real. I love that movie. But yeah, those are some that I pulled. I, of course, maybe I should just pan the camera here, but that's my VHS collection there. So there's plenty of others to choose from, but of course, I mean, the hits like Karate Kid and Weird Science and The Breakfast Club. I love all those movies. A lot of people don't like remember it or love it, but I love the movie Loverboy with Patrick
Yeah, Patrick
Dempsey.
Dempsey. I
Can't
love
Buy Me Love
I
is
love
great
Can't Buy
too.
Me Love.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
I
those go
just
back to.
talked about that. I just talked about that. Yeah.
I think you have a favorite comedies video that you
Oh
put
yeah,
up, right?
yeah, yeah. Can't Buy Me Love. Yeah.
Can't Buy Me Love is great. But yeah, I mean, what are some of your staples that you like go back to?
Uh,
Specifically, like what inspired you to be like a horror filmmaker?
well, you know what's
Or like,
funny, and this is interesting, and I've talked about it before, but and I still don't know why. But so growing up, uh, when we did or when I did, being a 77 kid, you're instantly like a Star Wars kid, right? You come out of the womb firing blasters at Darth Vader. And I was a Star Wars kid, and to this day I am. So everything early on was Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars, or the Muppets. Like I love Jim Henson. To this day, I mean, uh, I love Jim Henson. I love the Muppets. So I love all that fantasy stuff. I love, science fiction and weird stuff. So it was very bizarre to, um, so my mom, this was terrible, but this is just how it was back then. My mom and my uncles were one of the main reasons I am into the things that I'm into or saw the things that I saw at the age that I was. So in 1984, my mom and her friends took me to Nightmare on Elm Street, and I'm 7 years old.
oh, what?
But I had seen, like a Friday the 13th here, or the first thing I ever saw was on HBO, and it was probably 82, 83, was Creepshow. And that terrified me, you know. But I was also intrigued. I was just so like, ooh, what is, it scared me, but I couldn't stop watching it. So I was aware of horror movies, and certainly, like I said, because of my mom and uncles and everything. Um, but I didn't think I would be going to the theater to see a horror movie. I was seeing other stuff for sure. Like that year, I saw Temple of Doom and all that stuff, and I loved it. My aunt dressed me as Indiana Jones, and I had fake stubble and everything going to the theater to see Indiana Jones, but not Nightmare on Elm Street. And I'm sure they didn't tell my grandparents or anything like that. My mom was just like, yeah, we're good. Because I lived with my great grandparents. My mom was young. My mom was like 16 when she had me. So my great grandparents were like, you can't raise this kid, like you're a kid. So, but we all lived close to each other, and all of my family were very close, but just different houses. So I'm sure when I was with my mom and my uncles, they didn't know shit. Like they didn't tell them what I was into or what I was doing. So we went to see Nightmare on Elm Street, and I was afraid, but it entertained me. And I wasn't like entertained by like the blood or the killings or anything like that. I was taken with how it was scaring people, how it was like affecting people. And certainly I loved Freddy's face. I loved his hand. I was just so like, this is weird. I've never seen anything like this. And yes, it gave me nightmares, but what it did afterwards was I said to my mom, I want to make movies, and there was no way in hell that I was going to be a horror director, because I was a funny kid. I was a weird kid, a goofy kid, very silly, over the top. And that's how my mom and uncles were. The Seavers were just goofballs. So I knew there was no way I was ever going to make anything that would scare people or, frighten them or unease them or anything. But the idea of being able to affect somebody like that was intriguing to me. And I don't know why it was Nightmare on Elm Street that made me say, ooh, I want to make movies, when I had so many amazing movies that I had seen before this. and Star Wars and Indiana Jones and E.T. and all these movies that I saw in theaters, I was like, why the hell, why did this affect me? And to this day, I don't know why it was Nightmare on Elm Street. But I'll never forget like coming out and saying, I'm gonna make these, I'm gonna make movies,
Yeah.
And that's why I think for that Christmas when the family got a video camera, I was just like, I'm stealing this. I'm taking this. No 7-year-old should be running around with a $2,000 piece of equipment on, But I did. And it was that movie that made me want to make movies. But I didn't, like, to this day, I mean, I call it comedy horror movies, but essentially what I make are comedies.
Yeah.
Just the themes happen to be horror related because I
So you
also
do
love
like
horror.
campy, kitschy, like
Oh,
horror based
cheesy, over the
comedy.
top, silly, absurd, primarily comedy. I mean, my forte is comedy, but I love the genre so much that I have to throw in those tropes as well. There has
Yeah.
to be some sort of killer or werewolf or vampire or zombie or something thrown in, but I prefer to do straight up comedies. So even growing up making backyard movies, they would be, I'd be like, oh, we're gonna throw this Jason mask on somebody, but we're gonna do it like Monty Python style. We're gonna do the Zucker Brothers, and we're gonna do airplane parody, but with Friday the 13th or Freddy, and we're taping butter knives to like winter gloves and stuff like that, but being silly. And that's just, I just kept going, and I knew like, what, I'm gonna do this, horror comedy. And it was around 1989 when I rented 2 movies back to back that made me 100% say to myself, I can do this. I can do this. And it was The Toxic Avenger and Peter Jackson's Bad Taste.
Mm.
And I rented them at the same time, and I saw them back to back. And what a revelation. Like I was like, they are mixing comedy and horror in a way that I wanted to do it, because it wasn't like the comedy and horror of, like, say, my favorite horror film, Fright Night.
Oh,
It was different. It was more goofy. It was more absurd. It was the stuff that made me laugh like that I was drawn to, because of my mom and my uncles. So I was like, oh my God, these people are doing what I would love to do, mixing these genres. So really, those movies were the ones that sent me on that clear path of saying, it's got to be comedy genre. It has to be,
yeah.
So yeah. And then in 1991, I was like, I'm going to do this for real. I'm going to start writing scripts. And I call my company Low Budget Pictures, because that's what it is. And that's, and now
That's
I'm
great.
celebrating 30 years of doing that.
That's funny though. I would say that out of all that, like at a young age, like through cable TV, I was exposed to like the Hellraisers and the Child's Plays and the Jasons and the like all that stuff. But I never, like, I wasn't scared seeing those, but Freddy Krueger like actually affected me. Like I'd be watching him like this, but realizing that I love to be scared
Yeah.
and love this whatever it is. So like I still love like watching horror because of that feeling.
Yeah.
But like you, I love those ones that are kitschy, like Troll 2 and any critters. Like I'm on board, or Ghoulies. Like
Love them.
I
Love
love
them.
those films.
That stuff
But
is
yeah,
great. So yeah, but I mean, I wasn't, a lot of kids, it's interesting, like, well, I don't know, they're probably total bullshitting, but there's a lot of horror fans that, I've come across doing conventions since 93, that say, that are like hardcore and say, no, I've loved horror forever and that's all I've loved and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, you are such a poser, like,
there are people
you,
that like feel like you have to go all in. It's all in or
dude, like,
nothing.
don't tell me you grew up in a time that had, Teen Wolf and Ghostbusters and all these movies, like, and you were a strictly horror. No, bullshit. No, you were a kid running around loving Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. You know, they just want to be hard. They want to like.
But my rebuttal to that is like also so much of that time period horror, like if you go back and watch it, is garbage. Like
Well, I mean, 80s horror to me is the best horror ever. Like,
but now you could probably watch it and like appreciate the kitsch of it and like the what went into making that movie, like you being a filmmaker and like doing like the cheesy like comedy that you do, like where it's like meant to be campy and make people feel like happy while they watch it and not so much like frightened, you know? But
yeah,
there's so many of those movies where it's just like, oh, did you really only love horror? I mean, look at all these great movies that, like you said, I
yeah,
mean, Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, like all those movies are, how can you not like those?
yeah.
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I
And they
mean,
do. They do. They're just
yeah.
it's ridiculous. So
I wouldn't be able to live my life and only watch horror. Like,
yeah, so you know, I'm a huge horror fan, but
yeah,
I also love all of this stuff. You know,
yeah,
like I said, I was a pop culture sponge, and we, you know, grew up in the generation of the TV was our babysitter. You know what I mean? So I love the media. I love the cartoons and the commercials and the movies and the TV shows, and it just uh yeah. So the movies, I mean, how like you said, Back to the Future is huge, you know.
yeah.
You know, Airplane for me, comedy wise, the Monty Pythons and the I mean, it's ridiculous. It's
Mhm.
ridiculous. You know, the classics were the classics for a reason, you know, and I love them. And
There's too much entertainment to be like all in on one genre and insistent of that.
I know, man. I know.
I love it all. And then I did pull some of my favorite like kids shows that I had to go rebuy on like DVD, which one of them is Cops.
Cops,
You
yeah, man.
remember that? I love
1988.
Cops. And
Cops was great.
then I mentioned this Pee-wee's Playhouse is,
I mean, everybody has Pee Wee, man. They
so
gotta have.
I mean, yeah, like Ninja Turtles, Cops, Pee-wee's Playhouse. I loved like the even the like I loved He-Man, but I love the toys more than the cartoon. Like I go back and try to watch it and I'm like, it doesn't hold up.
It's rough. Yeah, it is rough. It's one of those. You know, I love it so much,
Yeah.
but damn it's just not good. Um, but I feel like Real Ghostbusters and Thundercats are shows that hold up because
Yes.
the writers on those shows were actually trying to do something within the realm of kids cartoons. You know, they
Yeah.
as much as they could, the limitations that they had, they were still trying to tell a good story. And so those hold up for me, man. And even Shira is better than Masters of the Universe
Really?
because I think they got, you know, some hip writers onto Shira in 85 and we're like, let's give them a little more meat. And they did. And I appreciate that cartoon more than He-Man as far as the stories are concerned. So, you know,
I love how like beefy like the stories are, like as far as like things like Silver Hawks and Cops and like the like the Super Friends shows and like even Mr. T, like some of those it's like you could actually watch them and like they like you know that they put something into the writing and it like was trying to
they tried.
sometimes teach a lesson and
Yeah, man. So they
um
tried.
but yeah, there's ones like where I try to watch He-Man and I'm just like, what's happening right now?
He-Man is rough. But I still, you know, it's still a huge part of who I am.
Yeah.
And it is one of my
Something with how it
top.
was something with how it was sold to us as kids with involving that the toys, like I think that's why like I'll always love He-Man is that memory of those toys in my life. But
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah,
So
there's nothing like it. Our kids will never have that. Like, get your bowl of cereal and you got to turn on the cartoons and
uh and like I said, I did that with River, you know, as much as I could until he was just like, all right, Dad, I'm not, no, you
Yeah.
know, I ain't sitting down with you and doing this. I'm good.
Yeah.
Um, but and then that's another reason why I do the Saturday morning sleepovers, because you know, in one fell swoop I get a day's worth of just nonstop everything that I loved.
I
um
saw you post about that recently. You had it right this year's.
yeah, we did the fourth year launch. I do them about 4 or 5 times every year.
God, I'd love to be
um
there. That's like right up my alley. I'd sit there and absorb all of that. Next
oh.
year, you should like live stream it.
Well, I've told so many fans, I'm like, one of these days I'm gonna do like a fan thing where you know, like 5 fans I'll invite to the house and just let them experience it.
Yeah.
It's a trip, man. It's so fun. And it's fun to, you know, we can fit about 15 people in the theater room. That's pushing it, but we can. And at some point, I'd like to do it on like a bigger scale. I'd like to host it. We have a theater here. It's like a repertory theater, so they do a lot of like older movies, 35 millimeter print still, but they have digital as well. And my buddy Ben, Fright Rags Ben, he does this thing called Saturday Night Rewind at the theater, and they'll do 35 millimeter prints of like horror or 80s movies. And for years we've talked about, you know what, one of these days we got to do like a mix of the Saturday morning sleepover with the Saturday Night Rewind, and they can come like all day and I'll do a curated thing of Saturday morning sleepover in the theater for them to enjoy, and then it'll go into the Saturday Night Rewind for people.
Hmm. That'd be
One of these days
awesome.
we'll do that, but it's so fun. It's just, yeah, man, it's such a, and we'll get in our pajamas, and you're in your pajamas all day, all night, and we have foods and cereals and snacks and drinks that we had. I mean, when you're done, it's like getting hit with a truck for sure, because of all the carbs, all the
Oh, sugar.
everything that you just did, and you sat there for 10 hours. Um,
That
but
sounds awesome, man.
it is worth it. It is so
Yeah.
fun. And like I said, it's great to see the people's faces who, you know, we have regulars that come now and they will bring like new people, and they're just always shocked. It's just so great to see that and to give that person a jolt of joy, you know.
I would even love to buy like a DVD set of like something like that you curate. Like I would love to have something like that.
Yeah, it's a trip. It's really fun. It's really fun. And I love doing it, you know. The curating is fun too, you know. I have like a lot of 80s stuff already on DVD or Blu-ray, but I scour the internet to find stuff, gems that like people just don't remember. I remember all of it, you know. I will make lists of everything that I loved and to see if I can go find it if I don't have it, you know. And it's that
just so
stuff.
just so they could hear something like, now we return to a very special episode of Webster.
Oh yeah, I do that, you know. And it's great to see like what hits and what doesn't, because we also have a lot of people that didn't grow up in that time, and you know, they're 90s kids and they had more 90s stuff, but they're really loving the experience.
Yeah.
So it's fun to see like their cringes for some of the 80s stuff. They're just like, wow, you guys had this. You know, like Small Wonder and things like that. It just like freaks them out, or like, ooh, this was terrible, you know.
Small wonder. I love it.
So it's fun. It's really,
Yeah.
really cool, you know. And it's funny about the cartoons though, because early on I did include a lot of cartoons in the mix, but what I found was it would bring the room down, because the cartoons are hit and miss, man.
Yeah.
It's not like a show. It's not like a television show that you can, you know, back to back. I have, you know, Facts of Life, Different Strokes, Family Ties, whatever, and then you'll get hit with like a Denver the Last Dinosaur, and people will be like, "Oh my god," you know, like, this is terrible. But
Dinosaur.
Yeah, but they love the theme song. So what I started to do was just put the intros of the cartoons in between some of the shows and the commercials.
There you
Because
go.
people love the intros. People love the themes.
Dude, the intros are the best. Even sitcoms.
Yeah.
Can we
but
get jingles back? Can we just please bring jingles?
can we get anything back? I mean,
Yeah.
but again, what's the biggest thing that our 2000s are aping, and that's the 80s, man.
Yeah.
And that's because the people who grew up back then are now executives. They're now running things, and they're like, I got to bring back this, and let's redo this, let's redo that. So it's lucky for us, who get to reaping the benefits.
Yeah, I'm like a couple episodes into the new Punky Brewster too. And
Well, I did.
trying to, it's kind of like it doesn't have the nostalgia that you want it to, but
Not for me. I love Punky Brewster. I grew up. I'm her age, Soleil's age. So as I was watching Punky, I was Punky's age. I was watching it as it was going along. I love Punky Brewster.
Yeah.
And man, I tried. I gave it like 4 episodes, and I was like, you know what?
It's a little rough. Some of those are a little rough. Like
this just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But that's okay. But I loved Saved by the Bell, the new Saved by the Bell. I was like, this is great. And they did it in such a way that totally appealed to me, and it worked.
It was good. I watched it all in like a couple of days.
I watched it in one day, man. I just binged it, and I was like, this is great. This is.
I missed the OG theme song, but
the theme song is terrible.
Yeah,
the theme song is terrible. Even my kid was like, what did they do to the theme song? He was like, what is this?
But yeah, all of it, all that nostalgia is like bleeding into entertainment too. So
oh yeah.
Like my son already loves the Goldbergs. Like I'm like, you understand this show? You're 4.
I loved the Goldbergs for about 5 seasons, and then I was like, oh, the 80s stuff is kind of going away.
I like to watch the earlier seasons again.
Oh, for sure.
If I ever turn it on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Stranger Things. I'm excited for that to come back.
Stranger Things blew me away. When I saw that first teaser for the first season, I was like, well, actually, Katie was in another room, my wife, and she was like, Chris, are you seeing this? And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you need to come see this trailer. And I'm like, what? Because, they dropped this trailer and nobody knew about this show.
Yeah.
Stranger Things. And I watched the trailer and I was like almost crying. I was just like, what is this? I was like, this was made for me.
That's exactly how I felt.
And I found it to be the most authentic show trying to be the 80s and really succeeding. I was like, holy shit, they really did their homework, and the Duffer Brothers are they're in their 30s. They didn't grow up in the 80s,
Yeah, I think they're maybe a little bit younger than me even.
They grew up with the stuff from the 80s that they just glommed onto, that their parents showed them, and that was their education, that was their 80s. And I was like, they are doing it. They're doing it right. And some other things that I've seen, they haven't quite captured what it truly was like. But holy shit, Stranger Things did. And I love it. Love it.
Yeah, the new season can't come quick enough.
Oh my gosh. Give it to me. Give it to me. Yeah, so great. But yeah. Is there anything else that you want to talk about?
I don't know, whatever. I don't know if you had anything else jotted down or.
I mean, it goes into your favorite cartoons, your things like that, the music, that type of stuff. What it seems like you were more of a Nick kid.
Like like the early 90s. I had a big I guess it would be like Snick was a big influence, like that early Snick from like 91 to like 94ish. Like Are You Afraid of the Dark is like one of the greatest shows ever made for television in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I love that era of Nickelodeon and those golden years. So
I was a teenager in those years, but I still loved it. Like
yeah.
I didn't like the cartoons, but I still watched my cartoons. So I was still watching, Inspector Gadget and He-Man and Mask and all that stuff. But
Yeah, like Are You Afraid of the Dark and the one I pulled out earlier, Pete and Pete, which
He,
I had to go track down like a complete series Blu-ray that someone made
well,
just so
because
I could have all of it.
those DVDs are
Yeah.
ridiculously expensive out of print. But yeah, so even at that, again, I didn't care how old I was. I wasn't one of those like, what, but you're a teenager, why are you watching this? I just did. So I liked Clarissa Explains It All.
Mm-hmm.
I loved Salute Your Shorts. I still watch Salute Your Shorts. So yeah, totally. But I didn't like the cartoons. They didn't appeal. So I wasn't a Rugrats person. I wasn't a, whatever the hell the Nick
Yeah.
cartoons, other than Ren and Stimpy. Ren and Stimpy was right up my alley. It was gross and weird and absurd and totally made for Chris Seaver for sure. But yeah, there was a certain point, and I've talked about it. It's funny. I don't know if you've watched the 90s stuff that we put up so far, but I give the 90s a lot of crap. And some about 20% joking on that, but I found the 90s to be disgusting, really. It's so funny, and people always laugh at it, and they're always poking me because I love so much from the 90s, but overall, aesthetically and the things that were coming out in the 90s, I just didn't find appealing. And
Mm-hmm.
so I always go to, well, you know what? It still felt like the 80s up till about 94, 95. And then it starts to really turn into the 90s. And
Yeah.
other than some amazing things that happened to me, um, movie making wise and things of that nature and friends wise, I found the pop culture of the 90s to be irritating and annoying and gross for me. So um, I joke a lot about my hatred for the 90s because it wasn't like the 80s. It really was
Yeah.
not like the 80s. And it's tough, somebody like you who had more of a 90s feel, and even my wife and things like that. I can't take that stuff away from you. I'm not going to sit here and say you're wrong, fuck you.
Yeah.
The 90s sucked.
Well, those were
Um,
96 to 2000 was my high school years. So
so yeah, I
I
mean,
like, and I worked at a movie theater, so like all the movies that came out around that time, like I know that I saw every one of them.
yeah.
But there's definitely a lot of films from that era that I still love, which like uh Can't Hardly Wait and 10 Things I Hate About You, and like I love those
See,
movies.
I know, but I get it. I understand it
Yeah.
because it's the stuff that was affecting you at that time in your life. I totally
Yeah,
get it.
like American Pie, like all those movies. Like I love those movies, but
So
it wasn't the same as the 80s. It's a different kind of
it's
pop culture,
totally
but
different. Totally different. So the CREPT from the 90s things are really, it was more so because my cousin Casey, who does the shows with me, he loves the 90s. He's only 4 years younger than me. But back then, 4 or 5 years
it's a
was a
lifetime.
lifetime.
A year is a lifetime when you're like go back to like 87 to like 90, like Ninja Turtles, like that stuff had like a year life cycle in my memory. Like
Yeah.
I was on early for Ninja Turtles, like I said, that first wave of toys and the cartoon, and then I was on to something else. Like it's like things just like wrestling, I think grabbed me away from that stuff, and then I was on those for like a year or two. It's
Yeah.
like yeah, like so like 4 years is an eternity back then, but
So yeah, so with this CREPT from the 90s thing, it's I'm trying to be as positive as I can, and I'm only picking out, and really there's not negativity on it, because I did like things from the 90s. I can admit that.
I think it would be fun to watch some of those movies and come together with you again and do like a podcast where we or a Zoom like this where we both watched it and like just give our point of view.
Oof. Oof. Yeah.
Come on. You don't like That Thing You Do? That's an incredible movie. Or what about Empire Records? Oh gosh, come on, man.
I was like, but this isn't, see, I relate more to 16 Candles and Breakfast Club and Weird Science than I do the 90s shit, because I just wasn't that person, and I didn't know people like that. I was like,
Yeah.
Who are these kids? Who are these teenagers? Like, it just wasn't a world that I was a part of. I just didn't.
But you're in like this weird like time period in between those. Like your high school years then were like the mid 90s, right? Like right before that?
My high school, yeah, but it's just because of the way that I was
exposed to it from like your mom and uncles.
Yeah, so going into the 90s, I was still so much an 80s kid. Like I just didn't understand. I was like almost threatened by the stuff that was coming in,
Okay.
It was
because your really formative years were that end of the 80s era where you're like 9 to 14 or whatever, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
I was 13 in 90, and I was still like I said, up to like 94, 95, nothing changed for me. I was just like 80s this and 80s that, and I didn't listen to a lot of music that was coming out in the 90s. I was still listening to 80s, and I just wasn't.
80s music is the best music. I'll fight anyone on it.
Oh, it is. It 100% is. And 90s music is one of the things that I find totally disgusting in the 90s. So I just but I will say that doing this CREPT from the 90s thing, I've come to appreciate the things that I do love from that decade, because it's like, oh, holy crap, like this was significant for this reason and this reason. So yeah, I'm not fully poo-pooing the 90s, or I wouldn't be doing the show on my channel.
Well, that's awesome. If you keep doing that, I'll come back and talk about anything 90s, because
oh yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, come on, like Casey would love it. He knows you'd have a warrior in you, somebody who isn't constantly going when he talks about something.
I have the benefit of being born in 82. I have this weird benefit of like loving the 80s, but having my like older adolescence in more of the 90s. So yeah. But that like you said, like the later half of the 90s, like it's not as nostalgic for me either, even though I was in high school then. It's like no. Yeah, the reference points kind of die off at that point.
I was in my 20s in the late 90s.
Oh man, I just think about like being 18 in 2000, and now it's 2021. I'm like, where did the time go?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is good, man.
Yeah,
fun. Yeah, I could talk all night, so we might have to do a part 2.
Totally good. But you've opened the door, so beware, because you've opened the door saying, "Hey man, get me on this," and now we'll probably be bugging you a lot.
Yeah, we'll have to do it. I'd love to have you and record it for my YouTube too. So
hey, whatever. Do another one. Yeah, man. Like, pimp your stuff. Bring it out. Tell the people. Yeah. Tell everything. Oh, I had that.
Do we want to try to like close it out so you have an edit point and then throw to me to do that, or
no?
I don't know.
That's too professional.
You're gonna leave this in now, you son of a. Yeah,
but I'll put up all your stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. You can find my Instagram at I had that on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I have a podcast and YouTube, both I had that OHIHADTHAT. It's right behind me here, the little logo. But yeah, I mean, it was my pleasure to be here. This was awesome. It's so fun to talk to you. I love your content, and I just watched your favorite comedies the other night, and I was going to tell you, now I have to track down Orange Tangerine Juicy Juice because you said it's just like Ecto Cooler.
100%. I'm not lying to you. You know, I've watched people's faces sip it when I've given it to them, and they're like, "Holy crap, this is Ecto Cooler."
You know, up until like about 6 months ago or so, I had about 24 boxes of the 2016 Ecto Cooler.
Yeah, I still
and
got some. Still got
I
some.
have 2 boxes, and I have a couple of cans of it. But
Oh,
I had like unopened 10 packs, and somebody was like, I'll buy those from you for $100. And I was like, okay, they're yours.
yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah.
And
Yeah, my
I
buddy,
kept 2. I kept 2. That's all I need for my shelf.
my
I'm
buddy.
really hopeful they're gonna bring back Ecto
Oh,
Cooler this year.
I think they will. I think
They already got a new cereal coming, right?
Oh, I
Like
know.
oh.
Oh, I know, and I'm gonna get it. I'm stupid like that, and I'll
Yeah.
get Twinkies because I'm stupid like that. You know,
Oh man, I can't wait.
will.
They've
will.
pushed off this Ghostbusters too many times. I'm like, please give it to us.
I'm pumped. But my buddy Chad, I was gonna say real quick. I don't know if you know horror movie Barbecue.
Yeah.
He's been on the show a couple times. He lives like 20 minutes away from me, but he still, like you, has been hanging on to that Ecto Cooler from 2016, and I think he recently tried it.
Don't drink it, man. No, it's like brown. It was like brown 2 years ago. Let alone now.
It didn't go over very well.
I took 1 sip of it like 2018 ish, and my stomach like hurt like 5 minutes later. I was like, nope.
Yeah. What's good about this Juicy Juice, and I said it on the video, is that it isn't as sweet as the High C. They they lay off a little of the sweetness. So for me, I was like, okay, well, I can drink 2 of these back to back and not get a sugar rush, you know?
I'm gonna grab this quick here. Like how cool is it in a can even? Like, look at that. The only thing it was missing for me was they needed to be able to get Slimer on there.
Yeah. I'm not sure why they couldn't do that, you know?
This one says expiry date of February 6, 2017.
Mine says.
It's cold. Should I pop it open?
This is January 30th, 2017. And this one says, January 2017. So these were fresh 4 years ago.
Oh, this is January. This box is January as well.
But yes, please. Not just for you, but for your son.
Juicy Juice, you are mine.
Orange Tangerine. You can get it in the boxes.
I saw they had big jugs of it. Is it as good in jugs?
It's the same thing.
It's expensive on Amazon though. Like I'm gonna have to.
We put it in little bottles, and we just put the wrap. We printed out wrappers.
Oh yeah.
Put a little green food coloring.
Do you find it easily, like at Walmart or something?
Oh yeah, it's here in our grocery stores. It's everywhere.
Nice. Okay, because I looked on Amazon and it was expensive. So.
If you need some, I'll send some to you.
I'm gonna track it down this weekend.
All right.
Oh, that like blew my mind when you said that. I was like, what?
Well, you got to let me know, because it's true. It is true. Let me know when you taste it. It's pretty great. Pretty great.
That also leads to like High C, because I think it's also High C. Every birthday party you had to have the huge jug of orange lava burst from McDonald's. And they're bringing it back. They got rid of it.
Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah, man.
I love that stuff. But yeah, so I guess I plugged my stuff. Oh, I had that. Thank you for having me though, man. This was really fun.
Yeah. We'll,
anytime you want to talk about the 90s and poo-poo it, I'll be here.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have to do something together where we like just talk about some more stuff in our rooms, because I'm just like having fun looking around behind you.
Oh yeah.
And see, like, do you have a boglin back there?
Oh yeah.
Uh
Yeah, that's so growing up I had two boglins. I had Vlab and Dwark, which is Drool, which is the tan one.
oh, that's so beautiful.
But yeah.
I saw that he recently kickstarted them to like bring them back, and I wanted one.
I got one.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I had to. But yeah, so yeah, for years I was telling my wife, I was like, I had this thing called the Boglins from Mattel back in the day, and
so great.
She had zero idea what the hell I was talking about, and I was like, I love them, and I really want to get them again. And so for my 40th birthday, they all threw me my friends and wife threw me an 80s party.
Nice.
And all I got were 80s presents. Like that's it. Like everything 80s, and this was one of them. And I like,
it's fantastic.
Like, oh my god, like you found it. She also got me the Castle Grayskull with the box and everything on that same birthday. Like it was amazing. It was
I'm jealous of the big cherry that you have there too.
Oh, that's from my childhood. That's the cherry that I had growing up, and this is also the Mr. T that I had growing up. But yeah, these two are from my childhood.
Nice.
And my son had them for a while, and then I was like, yoink, I'm taking them back. But yeah, good times indeed. So, all right, Joshua, then I thank you for joining me on this pandemically erotic episode of CREPT from the 80s.
Why is it erotic?
Because I'm weird. And folks, guys, do yourself a favor and find I Had That on the social medias, because it is great. It is another time machine for you to step back in and to give yourself some joy, and it's awesome. And he's 1,000 strong, friends. So make it even more. Get out there. Get on all the channels. Get on his YouTube channel.
Yeah, my YouTube is the one that's like,
come on.
I need more friends.
All right, let's do it. Let's get the CREPT from the 80s people over there.
I was going to say the only thing erotic about this video is that Zapped poster.
Well, and Jason Bateman, look at that pose.
The bait man,
that pose. Oh my gosh.
That furry he's got coming out of there.
Yeah, you know that's groomed, ladies.
Do you?
So, all right, guys. So, thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you like what you saw. There's tons of stuff on the channel for everybody's tastes in the geek world and the geek culture. And if you like filmmaking and weird comedy horror, it's also there for you. And we will see you on another episode of CREPT from the 80s. Goodbye.